Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, everybody. Oy, what a week. What a week. Huh? Unbelievable. You know, if there's anything that this time in history is with the pandemic and the crumbling of our democracy and our anxieties about the future that are all in our minds, it's that it provides an extraordinary lens into Judaism, doesn't it? And by that I mean, we Jews are no strangers to any of these things that we're going through as a country. A lot of people are freaking out, but from a Jewish perspective, we're like, we've seen this, we've lived through this, we know what this is. We've lived through pandemics and benevolent societies seemingly turning to hatred. We've seen all kinds of things like this throughout our history. And it also provides a really fascinating lens on our observance, because so much of how we observe Judaism is meant always, for thousands of years, has been a response to these kinds of conditions within which we find ourselves in. And in that way, right now, in this year, 5781, that we've just started, Judaism really does provide a path forward for us spiritually in this world that we live. That's the message of the High Holy Days, and that's the message I'm continuing on this Sukkot as well. Case in point, the building of the Sukkah, right? This idea that you go outside and you build this temporary structure. Why do we do that? And I actually want to share something written by my colleague, Alav Shalom, Alan Liu, from his book, This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. He talks about what we're doing when we build a sukkah. He says, we sit flush with the world in a house that calls attention to the fact that it gives no shelter. It is not really a house. It is the interrupted idea of a house, a parody of a house. So it is that the sukkah, with its broken lines, its open roof, its walls that don't quite surround us, calls the idea of the house to mind more forcefully than a house itself might do. And it exposes the idea of a house as an illusion. The idea of a house is that it gives us security, shelter, haven from the storm. But no house can really offer us this. No building of wood and stone can ever afford us protection from the disorder that is always lurking all around us. No shell we put between us and the world can ever really keep us secure from it. And we know this. We never really believed this illusion. That's why we never felt truly secure in it. In the Sukkah, a house that is open to the world, a house that freely acknowledges that it cannot be the basis of our security, we let go of this need. The illusion of protection falls away, and suddenly we're flush with our life, feeling our life, following our life, doing its dance, one step after another. Beautiful words. He was an amazing rabbi, an amazing writer and teacher, Alan Liu. So, you know, in our time, in the year 2020, you know, it's not just a metaphor of a house, we know. We know that it's a metaphor of the whole world around us. So many of us have thought we could count on all kinds of things here in America in this day and age, which are being called into question, that have disappointed us and let us down. So, you know, you might say for Sukkot in this particular year, this idea of the metaphor of the Sukkah seems quite frankly redundant. Do we really need another reminder that everything is frail and falling apart? Why do we need such a constant reminder every year, right? It seems like, oy, gewalt, enough already, genug schon, as we say, right? Well, of course, the reason is because Sukkot's purpose is not to leave us in that depressing reality that it's all going to blow away in the wind anyway. It leaves us in a position to find what real security truly means. What is, if that's not secure, if our homes and our world is not the security we thought it is, then what is the real security that we need in our lives, every year of our lives? That's what Sukkot is pointing us to. So in order to teach what the real security is, I want to take you through a tour of various metaphors and symbols of real security in Judaism. Okay, so first it's the Sukkah itself. Ironically, it is a symbol of security and ultimate safety. How is that so? Well, when you think about what a Sukkah represents, what did you learn in Hebrew school? You learned that a Sukkah was just like the tents that the Israelites lived in the desert. Well, that's true. It's a reference back to that. But in our Midrash, we take the symbol of the Sukkah much further. And in fact, the Sukkah is often equated with what we call the Ananei HaKavod. An anan in Hebrew is a cloud of kavod, of glory, the clouds of glory, Ananei HaKavod, which, according to the Midrash, always surrounded and protected the Israelite encampment. No matter where they were, no matter how they traveled, those clouds were always there, kind of like a divine force field. But of course, also the image of a cloud is numinous. It's something that is not quite physical or material. A cloud is spiritual. So it's a metaphor of spiritual protection, even when physical protections are not the things that we can necessarily count on. And that's what we're saying when we say in the Hashkivenu, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shalomecha, spread over us your shelter of peace. In a sense, it's referring to those Ananei HaKavod, to that divine force field, that spiritual protection. So that's the message here. That's the first clue here, that the real protection is a spiritual protection. I want to take you to another metaphor of safety and protection in Judaism. And that is a phrase we're all familiar with. It is Magen Avraham. Remember that? That's what we say every time we begin the Amidah, that God is Magen Avraham, literally the shield of Abraham. What is this shield of Abraham? Well, we know that Abraham's life seems to have been protected over and over again in all of his trials and travails in Egypt and elsewhere. He always seems to have gotten through. In fact, there's a famous midrash where the king Nimrod throws him into a fiery furnace and he comes out alive. That's the Magen Avraham. And why did he have this special Magen, this special protection? It's because, according to our tradition, he had an unswerving, unyielding emunah. He had faith. He had such a perfect faith in God at all times that God protected him in the world. And then we have the idea of zchut avot, or the merit of our ancestors. So because Abraham, our father, had such faith, that zchut, that merit, protects his offspring from generation to generation. So when we begin our Amidah every week, we say, God is Magen Avraham. We're beseeching God to remember Abraham and the protection he afforded, that we would also have that safety and protection, Lador Vador, from generation to generation. I want to take you through one more very interesting and later metaphor for God's protection, and that comes from the Sfat Emet, a Hasidic teaching, and he says, he wrote the following. He said, my grandfather always used to say that there is a nikudah, a point within each Jew's heart that protects, that God protects. In this way, he is the Magen Avraham, the shield of Abraham, meaning God is the shield of Abraham. This is Nikudat Ahava, the point of love, the love that many waters cannot douse. This is a really beautiful metaphor that I want to unpack a little bit here. In a sense, it brings together all of the metaphors together into one. And very significantly, it locates all of those protecting metaphors, not out there in the world where we don't know what's happening and we don't know if we're in control. It locates it right here, Balev, in the heart. So the Sfat Emet often teaches this idea over and over again of a nikudah. There's this spark of the divine that animates you, right? It's inseparable from your soul. It is the spark of divinity. The God who created the whole universe sparks life into you with each beat of your heart, with each moment, with each breath. It's a beautiful idea. And very significantly, what is that nikudah? What is that divine spark? It all has another name. It's love, nikudat ahava. This is so lovely. And that's why I really want us to hold on to this. It is the spark of love within you. And that's why he quotes now from Song of Psalms, Mayim rabim lo yuchlu lechabot et ahava, that many waters cannot drown out love. Just like the Sukkah, it might be blown away by winds, it might be swept away in a flood, but many waters cannot drown out ahava. That is the teaching, and that is the Magen Avraham that lives in you. That is, so Abraham himself, what was the source of his faith? It was ahava. It was love. And that love is what gets passed down from generation to generation. That's what you've received from your ancestors. That's a very real thing. It's not abstract spiritual metaphor. It's real, right? So this is why on Sukkot, we go into this experience of taking away our security, of seeing how our houses don't provide protection, and thinking about how our societies and our government and our environment and none of these things are providing protection. It's not to totally bum us out. It's not just to freak us out. It's the idea that what do you have left when you strip away everything else? When you strip away all of the illusions and all of the fantasies that we cling to in life normally. What's left? It's that nikudat ahava. It is this place of love. And that's what Sukkot really, really, really means. It doesn't matter what the present or future brings. It doesn't matter what we're going to gain or what we're going to lose. It doesn't matter what's going to change. It doesn't matter what's not going to change. The real mitzvah of Sukkot is to do doing the archaeology, digging through till you get to that nikudat ahava. Can you go in? Can you find it? You can always find it in your heart of hearts. Can you feel the love that's always there? That's God. that's the spark of God within you. That's what's animating you. That's what links you to the generations. Can you feel it? If you can't, then maybe you want to just think about the faces of your loved ones, the people you love most. Because you know what those faces do? They reflect you back to that nikudat ahava, to that place that is in its purest essence, the presence of God, where God always lived, which is right in your heart of hearts. So no matter where our society is going to go, no matter where it's going to go in a handbasket, we don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, we always have that capacity to find that nikudat elohut, that divine spark, that nikudat ahava, in every single moment, right? Even if there are leaders who teach hate, or this whole society adopts hatred as its way of life, it's not going to happen, by the way. I don't believe it will. But even if that should happen, our task in Sukkot, our wisdom from thousands of years, is to remember we always have that potential to rise up again for justice and for love. That's the nikudat ahava. Just stay there. I'm telling you, this is what Judaism promises us. That's what Sukkot is all about. That place of being surrounded by love in that Sukkah, which is what we're really supposed to be doing in that Sukkah, is just surrounding ourselves with our loved ones and our friends. Find that love and that support. And that will give us the strength and the courage and the vision, the love and the creativity and the gratitude to move forward, to acknowledge the truth, and finally, from that strength and that love, to build the real Sukkah, the real security, to shape and fashion the whole world in the image of God, which is the image of that spark of love within us. May we build that in the coming weeks and months and years, and build a society that truly understands the meaning of real protection. And let us all say, Amen.